What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We are back with another uncomfortable conversation. Welcome back, everybody. Shout out to the mods in the building, Steph Colonel, Ken Thoreau, Hotep Dutch. Appreciate you all, my homies. As you already know, I'm a three-time tech startup co-founder. Fourth one coming, maybe fifth, sixth, 10th, 100th. Going for it all. But all those links are in the description box below. One of them is an AI company. We do retail space optimization as well as security, facial recognition, object recognition. We can detect things like the difference between a bear and a dog or a cat. We can even detect the different genders. A lot of great things happen with that company. It's Wazo AI. We just got our first investor, or I shouldn't say first, but our first big investor. Shout out to somebody who supports my channel. I don't want to disclose his identity yet for his own purposes. But great things are happening at Wazo AI. And I had another person hit me up recently who wants to invest as well. So I think right now the company is valued at like 8.6 million dollars. Great things happening there. Also have coinbitsapp.com. We have close to $1 million in assets under management. Coinbitsapp.com, the automatic Bitcoin investing app. That link is also in the description box below. And all my good grifters out there and personalities and public figures that use Twitter. Gifitize is the app that everybody's using to rip GIFs and videos from Twitter. That link is also in the description box below. We're talking to some potential devs that's going to bring us to the Android platform soon, so look out for that. Today I have a very special guest for you. Spoke to this gentleman before. He was one of the very few people that welcomed me with open arms into the crypto community. I love this guy. I kind of like this guy. He's a man's man, and he's not like one of these bitch ass motherfuckers that we see sometimes in the crypto community. But I'd like to introduce to y'all none other than my homie, Vin Armani. Vin, what's up, homie?
What's up, man? How are you?
Life is good. Life is good, bro. How are you?
I'm in a tropical paradise, so I can't complain.
Yo, I see that. I'm like, yo, where are you at? And what'd you say? You said Saipan?
Saipan, which is it's an island in the U.S. Mariana Islands. So it's a U.S. territory like Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa. It's actually north of Guam. It's in the same. Some people might know Guam, especially if they've been in the military.
Yeah.
So it's a big military outpost there. This is actually in the same island chain, so you could think of it as an island chain, kind of like how Hawaii is. It's a little longer, but maybe about the same number of islands. The islands are not as big as the Hawaiian Islands. And this is the main island of the northern Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands. So Guam has its own Commonwealth, and then this has a Commonwealth, even though they're in the same island chain. And it's again, military. It's like a very famous battle was fought here, one of the last important battles of World War II. So there's all kind of World War II stuff. I'm near the lagoon. There's a big lagoon here. There's 2 Sherman tanks in the lagoon that people go and swim out to that are still there from the war. And it's a lot like Puerto Rico in terms of the tax system and all of that. You don't have to pay to the IRS if you live here, but everybody born here is a U.S. citizen. It's U.S. law. You don't need a passport to come here, even though we're basically in Asia. So it's a 4-hour flight to Japan, 4-hour flight to Korea. You can even get to Russia, to Vladivostok in like a 5-hour flight. So yeah, it's the other side of the world for sure, and it's calm, man. We came here in April. I'm glad we made the decision to leave, and it's dope. There's a little crypto community here that's bubbling, and so yeah, that's where I'm at. That was the move.
So what made you just hop up and move? And where'd you move from?
I moved from Southern California.
Okay, so
and I moved. Yeah, and I moved when the governor started to get crazy in March. I told my family it's time to go. Right, so my connection.
So when you say family, what family are you talking about? Like wife and kids, or?
wife and kids. Well,
Okay.
I mean, I told my whole family, right? Like I told my mother and my extended family that like I'm leaving. I don't know. I told them I don't know the direction that this goes, but I did tell them, look, I see this turning into basically people being snatched off the streets and thrown into unmarked vans, which we just saw, right? So I said, I don't know how this, and they were looking at me like, what are you talking? This is a virus. What do you? I was like, nah, nope,
Wait,
nope.
wait, wait.
I'm
What did you mean? We just saw somebody. We saw somebody get tossed into a van.
Portland. That's what
Oh,
these
the
federal troops.
Portland.
Yeah, that's what these federal police are doing. They're running around and throwing people into unmarked vans.
Mm.
So whether you agree with it or not, we've seen it before in history. And so, I saw the direction that went, and my professional connections in terms of with being involved with Bitcoin, my political views that I've expressed, the people that I roll with, a lot of the people who have been canceled and censored are people that I have association with because I've either had them on my shows in the past or they're personal friends of mine or whatever. And so I was just like, you know what? It's time for me to go to a place where I can be a little more chill. My family doesn't need to really have that worry. And there's no lockdown here. People aren't walking around in masks. It's very Asian, a lot of Filipino and Chinese. So the Chinese store owners are still like, wear a mask, But people wear them in the store. But like, I'm looking behind me because I live basically right on the beach, and there's a group setting up here for what looks like is going to be a barbecue on the beach with like maybe 50 or 60 people, and I guarantee you not a single one of them is going to have a mask on. So that's sort of the vibe here. There hasn't been any
Uh,
COVID cases here on the island for, I don't know, 3 months maybe. It's all been
mm.
people coming in and they test them and they test positive and they stick them in a quarantine or whatever. So it's like, it's been super chill. I've been super productive. I think it was the right move. So I would encourage, especially crypto people, if they to check it out. There's a group called Crypto Frontier. That's really why I chose the spot, cryptofrontier.org. And it's a brother. He's Stanford graduate. Like he got his master's from Stanford. Nigerian dude who went to China and started teaching in China, and then
Mm.
decided that he was going to go all over the world and look for where was the freest place. He's a U.S. citizen, but a Nigerian descent, and he found this spot, and it has inspired people to start coming over here. Young dude, and so I was able to come over, and we've been doing a lot here. So I would advise people who are in the crypto space, if you could work anywhere, especially young men, this is a pretty good location for that. So
Mm.
that's
So,
why I'm
so,
here.
so you are escaping the communism that is
Exactly.
overtaking California. Now, what did your family say
That's
when
right.
you brought this information? Were they like, like, what was their reaction?
Well, my wife was down. She was like, "I'm ready to go live on a tropical island." Right. Um, I had gone to California because I had my second child. I have two daughters, and we were in New Hampshire, being a part of the Free State Project. That's where I had established my company, Cointex, cryptocurrency SMS based wallet. And you have those kids. It's good to have the extended family around, especially grandma. Not being on the other side of the country, and I could work from anywhere. So we went, and that was really wonderful. That I was back in my hometown where I thought I would never be again, but having those kids changed everything, right? Like being able to have the family around and them being around their cousins and everything, and so it was pretty joyous. So it was melancholy leaving. Of course, it was nice to get away from what I saw coming, but obviously my family was sad to see us go. But the communism is it's something else, man. It really
Yeah.
is. It's really something else. And I'm glad we're gone. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, Chalamoy says, shout out to Vin in the Nation. The mashups are on fire lately. He said, can you grow your own food there? Is power consistent, water clean? And, well, I think State Fuckery kind of just, basically said it's a really free place. Yeah, so can you
Yeah.
grow your own food there? What's the power like? I mean, the Wi-Fi looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting on Docomo. So if people who know NTT Docomo is the main Japanese telecom company. They've consistently always had the fastest internet connections in the world, and the fiber runs right through here. So, like I said, Guam is a major military hub, and the backbone has always passed right through Guam to be able to support the U.S. military from the beginning. So we get that. We get that spillover. So the internet here is incredibly fast, and actually the mobile internet, they're very proud of the fact that this is Typhoon Alley. So they have typhoons here, which is a hurricane. That's what they call a hurricane in the Pacific, and they've had some massive typhoons. The biggest landfall of a hurricane ever was like 2 years ago, the most powerful, and it hit the southern island here. But their mobile internet never went down the whole time. So their people's power went out, everything shut off, but the houses were blown apart, but the mobile internet was still blazing broadband. So they're very proud of that. Um, the yeah, the power is consistent. It is. You're in the U.S., so I mean that's the thing. You come here, and I mean you're in the U.S. It's got all the bells and whistles. Although there's everything has to be shipped in, so there's not as much variety of things here. But power is consistent, except if there's a typhoon. Water is depends on what island you're on. If you're on the southernmost island of Rota, then the water is like you can actually. It's got famous springs. Here on Saipan, it's kind of like being in Mexico. You can use it for your dishes, for your washing, all of that, but you don't drink it. So, but there's very established like water delivery, and they do reverse osmosis, so they pull it right out of the ocean. All the hotels have their own reverse osmosis. So it's a small island with tourism has been the industry, so all that infrastructure is here. And in terms of laws, there's only 55,000 people here in the Commonwealth, and the government is they have what they call the familia system. So it's the Chamorro people, which are the political. Basically, this is an island of people of color. That's the first thing. Like you almost never see a white person, even though you're in the United States.
When you say
Um,
people of color, you mean dark skinned people?
yeah, as dark as certainly darker than me, and
Okay.
as dark as you for sure. I mean,
Okay.
the Chamorro. If you look at Chamorro people, and especially the Carolinian people, so the Carolinian people and Chamorro people are the ones who are sort of this is their part of the world.
Okay.
The the Chamorro people are a little more related to Polynesians, and they've had more Spanish mixture, and
Mm.
they also had the Germans and the Japanese who were in control of this island. So you'll run across these dark-skinned Chamorro people with, there's a senator named Hofschneider, and the Hofschneider family is a very powerful family. Not a single one of them would you think was a German. You know what I mean? So, but they have, and then you have the Torres, the governor's Torres. So it's like you see these old influences. Same with the Filipinos, but yeah, the Chamorro people, they are a little more like they look more like Polynesian, kind of like a Polynesian, maybe Filipino, maybe Latino, you could say. And then the
Yeah.
Carolinian people look more like an Indonesian or like an Aboriginal from Australia.
Right.
They have that very very dark, very
Right.
dark. So and they're from the islands to the south in Micronesia. So they've
Okay.
got they've got afros and they got the dark skin, and so that's who controls the politics on this island,
Okay.
and that's who makes up the police force. That's who makes up the government workers, and they're all related to each other.
Wow.
So they're pretty chill. I mean, you really don't get messed with about too much here. Um, very, very chill. And in terms of growing food, yeah, I mean, not only can you grow food like pretty much anywhere, it's got a year-round growing season. But like, you go into certain areas and you'll see chickens running on the street. Sometimes I'll see somebody. They do domesticated deer here, so people just grow venison right on their own yards, and you'll see people walking around with deers on leashes. Sometimes you'll just see a random cow walking around eating the grass on the side of the beach road, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And the lagoon is filled with fish, and the ocean is packed with fish. So as you drive up and down, you just see people selling fresh fish all day. You see spear fishermen out in the lagoon. There's probably some out there right now if I look. Every morning I walk and there's just nothing but people fishing in the traditional way. So it's pretty dope. It's dope like that.
I'm coming. I'm sold.
Come, man, come.
As soon as I sell one of these companies, I'm bringing the whole fam out there.
Come, man, come. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're a U.S. citizen, you don't even need a passport to fly out here. You could fly Hawaii to Guam to here, or Hawaii to here, and you don't even need a passport. You just need your state ID, and you good.
Oh wow! How do they feel about growing marijuana out there?
Oh, this is the place in the U.S. territories that has been legal for the longest.
Okay.
It's been legal here longer than like anywhere. People just grow here. They've been growing, and there was a actually this population they did a survey in late 90s, early 2000s of all these places and how what percentage of the population smoked weed. So when they did it here, it was 22%. 22% of the population said that they smoke weed on a regular basis.
Okay.
So they're super chill about it here. So I mean, they love reggae music. That's all you hear. So that's the
Uh,
music of the island is just reggae. They like Jamaican reggae, and then they like the Hawaiian, Polynesian reggae too. So you see them blowing trees all the time with the reggae music going. You smell it everywhere, and
ah.
then they chew betel nut which is a native kind of like nicotine. So you see betel nut being sold everywhere, and there's just like signs everywhere saying "Don't spit betel nut on these sidewalks," because it stains. And then there's coconut palm trees everywhere, and so they make this coconut palm wine that's called tuba. So they just climb up the tree, slice a little piece, it drips in, and then it ferments right in this bamboo. And so you can go and buy that too. It's about 5% alcohol. So it's just their native. They're all about that, and the government has made all of that legal. So
Uh,
all of that is legal for like people to do personally. They're like it's a part of our tradition, being at one with nature and everything. So it's super chill here.
oh my God! Damn, Vin. I gotta come, man.
You
You
gotta
know.
come. You gotta
Yo, before I
come.
forget, I got your shut up and code shirt right here.
Oh,
It's
what?
yeah, I got it. I got it. It's sitting on my desk. I'm gonna mail it out to you ASAP. You know what I'm saying? It's coming to you ASAP. When
Thank
you
you,
told
man.
me you was in Saipan, I'm like, I can't send him no hoodie because he gonna.
No, no use. It's Guinness Book of World Records says this is the place with the most consistent climate in the
Mm.
entire world, and it's between 70 and 85 degrees, 365 days of the year.
Wow, wow, yeah. All right, so if y'all find out I'm missing, I'm with Vin Armani. Chad Lemoyne again. He said cost of living, vaccine, guns. He said I got questions for
Mm.
days.
Yep, guns. So guns is an interest. This is one of the most interesting places when it comes to guns. So it's basically constitutional carry here, but the native people are obviously after having been conquered by Europeans and then the Japanese and then having the entire island bombed to shit in World War II, they have a natural inclination against guns.
Mm,
So, their history in many ways like the Japanese did when the Europeans brought the guns to Japan. The Japanese took the guns and then they had a moratorium for like a century where everybody else in the world was fighting with guns and they were still fighting with swords, because
right.
they had just all decided these guns are no good. But the Spanish came here and the missionaries came here, and in the 1500s and 1600s it was the Bible and the gun that they used to take these people's land and convert them away from their traditional religion. And so while they've integrated a lot of that, the Spanish culture certainly into their language and whatnot, there's a big backlash from them about that. And they also everything here in this culture is about family. It's a very the politics is all familial. They have a system where the eldest member of the family is just the leader. So they have this immense respect for their elders, like that you could not imagine. It's like whatever the elders say, go, and the elders are they take on that responsibility, and that has not changed here. And so they have this big concern about the youth, and not a lot. There's no crime here. There's certainly no violent crime,
Mm,
and so they they have that concern. They're very conservative in that way.
Mm.
And but it is U.S. law here, so they tried to put on the books several years ago some things about you can't, you have to pay this $1,000 registration fee for a gun and all of this. You can't import ammunition. You can't do this. And so two guys who I actually have become friends with now, actually two great guys, one Chamorro and one is a white Navy veteran. They both did some pretty landmark cases here that nullified all the gun laws.
Mm.
The federal court has basically said it's constitutional carry. You can't have any gun laws here.
Mm.
The interesting thing is the Chamorro-led government did not take the laws off the books, but they also do not enforce them.
Mm.
So it's kind of this weird fig leaf where they know that if they enforce them, they're going to have to fight a lawsuit and they'll lose the lawsuit and then they'll have to be forced to take the laws off the books.
Right.
So they've kind of just left these laws on the books, but it's constitutional carry. If you want to carry concealed, no problem, not even without a license. There's a you pay I think $15 for this firearms ID card, so people just go and do that, and that's basically it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this place, man.
Mm-hmm. What was the other thing that he asked? So he said
he asked
guns.
about vaccines.
Oh,
Vaccines and
well,
cost of living.
cost of living had been, it's fluctuated and it had been higher. But if you ever wanted to come here, now is the time, because they basically have had no tourism since March. Tourism was their main industry, and so the island is just full of basically fully furnished vacation homes.
Mm.
We're talking from bungalows and condos to 6, 7, 8 bedroom houses. But right now there are like furnished. So I'll give you some ideas because I just looked at some. I live on a house on the beach. You can't own land here if you are not a Chamorro. Can't
Okay.
own land. You can have up to a 55-year lease on the
Mm.
land. You can own a condo. You can own second floor. It's very strange, but you can't own the land that's underneath it. But so in sort of the premier condo development here, which is called Annex. I just took a look at a place yesterday, not yesterday, last week, fully furnished, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, beautiful view, huge deck, a big screen TV, Apple TV, and all of that, $1,800 a month. But then there are also some houses like up on the hills that take a little longer to get to, but fully furnished, pool, like 6 bedroom, 4 bathroom, $2,000 a month, right? So
Hey,
for that,
I'm
yeah.
filing for divorce. I'm moving to Saipan.
So it's so now is the time to move here if you ever wanted to, because all of these places that were previously up on like Airbnb and whatnot, there's no tourists, so they're all doing yearly leases on them for cheap. So it's
Damn.
dope. It's like a buyer's market. Now food more expensive. Everything has to be imported for the most part. There's just a few local items, from chicken to some local vegetables and stuff, and those are all dirt cheap. Fish, dirt. I mean, I've never seen so cheap.
Mm.
But everything else that you would want, consumer goods, it all has to be imported. So you got to keep that in mind. So that's a little more expensive. Electricity's about what you would pay in like a California or in New York. Phone is about the same as what you would pay for anywhere. You don't need much gas to get around,
Mm.
but you are going to need a vehicle of some sort. And so I'm renting. You could buy a lot. Now's the time to especially buy stuff on the island. But like I'm renting a 2-year-old Forerunner right now for $600 a month with full insurance and everything. So it's pretty, it's easy to get
Mm.
by.
Yeah. And how are they with the vaccines?
Well, I don't. There's no kind of mandates here. I know that they probably would like children to have vaccines to go to the public schools, but most of the kids go to private schools here. The private schools are relatively inexpensive, and there's quite a few, both religious and non-religious. There's Montessori schools. Um, if we do this mandatory COVID vaccine, it's going to be really hard for them to enforce. A huge
Mm.
percentage of the people here, even though they're U.S. citizens, don't even have social security cards or numbers. They don't have driver's licenses or ID cards. They certainly don't have passports. And there are not even any street addresses here. Everybody's address is a PO box. And so, like, when you go and you tell the internet guys, you're like, okay, the stadium, okay, across the street, and then, like, the beach entrance right there, okay, like 2 lots down, and they're like, oh, the blue house? Yes, that's me. And they're like, okay, we'll be there. Or you do like a Google Maps and you'll drop a pin on it, and then you'll send somebody the link. It's like, oh, I'll just drop a pin on it.
Yeah,
And that's how you tell people how to get places. There's no street addresses.
oh wow. Yeah, I love that. I love
Hmm.
that. That's so dope. All right, enough about Saipan
Okay, okay.
because I'm ready to leave my woman and just disappear right now. I'll be back next month. Because I will do it. God damn it! I'm like this close to like booking my flight and disappear until September. We
saying,
might, you know,
I'm
we
saying.
we might have to do Hotep. We were trying to plan Hotep Con. You might do Hotep Con out there, man. Just fucking
Oh,
disappear.
this would be a great place for it, man. This would be a great. We're definitely doing crypto conferences here. There's tons of hotels, and especially now, there's tons of hotel room space
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful hotels. I mean, this is a major tourist destination,
Mm.
and so it's dope, man. And I don't know that tourism will. It's been mostly Asian tourism, so I think a lot of that's going to end up falling off, even if they reopen completely, which they're mostly reopened now. But it's
Yeah.
just the flights coming in from Asia, maybe not till September. But United is still flying in here. The U.S. flights are flying in here. So
Mm. Well, if y'all have a crypto conference, call me up because I'm coming, and I ain't coming
okay,
for
good, yeah,
the crypto.
yeah. It's I mean, so for the women, it's a place of immense beauty. And especially if you have kids and stuff, it's fantastic. You could come here, and the beaches are great. The water is warm. My family, my wife and kids spend pretty much every afternoon, every day, at the beach. These beaches. And for the men, it's an island filled with. There's a lot of beautiful women that are native to this island or who have come in here from a lot of different places.
Do they have
And
Instagram accounts?
I'm sure they do. As
Damn,
a, as
damn.
a.
We need some native women that don't have Instagram accounts.
Well, I mean, I think that honestly, people here seem to be more on Facebook. The
Okay.
Instagram accounts that I've seen have been. My wife is Russian, so there's a huge Russian community here because it's not that far from Russia, right?
Okay.
And they've been here. They've been here a long time. So most of the Instagram accounts that I've seen, I don't spend much time on Instagram myself. I can't really. I can't stand it.
Mm.
Um, my wife does though, and the Instagram account she showed me is all from Russian women who are here. But it's
Mm.
like, yeah, but I could see, Russian women's Instagram accounts pretty much anywhere. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
no, most of the women here do not seem to spend that much time on social media. They're doing
Oh
other
wow.
stuff. You know.
Fellas, your soulmate is in Saipan. Go get you one of them native women. Don't give her no cell phone. Hey, go find your wife in Saipan. All right, let's talk. Let's talk Vin
Okay.
Armani. Let's talk Vin
Okay.
Armani. I got some personal questions.
Do it.
What's your ethnicity? You're not a whole
Mm.
white man. You got
Am I any of a white man? I'm half black and half Mexican.
oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm about to say you little dark over there.
Well, my father. So I'm kind of two weird ethnicities mixed up though. So the Mexicans are like, what? I think black folks get it. They're like, oh yeah, he must be mixed, right? Like that like they get that. Oh, this is a light skinned dude. But so my father's family lineage is they're Creole from Haiti. So they're a little more like on the red bone side. Um, and then my mother's family is Sephardic Jews who escaped. during the Inquisition and went into communities in northern Mexico. So
Okay.
they're kind of weird looking, and they've got these weird last names from like the Basque region up there where they were from. So you go to the cities named after them, and it's like, I don't know if people know much about the Basque people, but they're like a different ethnicity. Like they're in Spain, but they're even fighting for um, independence. They have a different language that's not Spanish. It's
Mm,
maybe closer related to like Hungarian or something like that. And
mm.
so that's my family's kind of from that group. So yeah, so I'm ethnically ambiguous, which has worked out in my favor. I've worked it to the best I can throughout my life.
Hell yeah, you get it. You can get fit in anywhere.
Right.
I'm black. I'm white. I love it. I love it. Um, can we talk about your past in that industry?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So for people that don't know, Vin Armani was smashing hoes on camera and getting paid for it. He was part of the pornography industry. Now, I need to know, Vin, how old were you
Yes.
at that time, and what made you say, you know what, I want to do this thing?
So it's interesting. I guess that you could say that I was part of the pornography industry well, smashing hoes on camera may be actually the wrong term because it's on camera. Technically, I was the hoe because the so the context of how this all happened was uh, this occurred like around when I was about the age of 30. I'm 42 now. I
Are you?
was a yeah, I was a software developer, very established in my career, as well as an entrepreneur. With several little small profitable side businesses that I was running, software related, technology related, and just got involved with the pickup artist community in LA at that time. Those, people have heard of like the book The Game by Neil Strauss and a Mystery
Mm,
Method and all those. I just ended up running into those dudes because I was out and about. I had been a DJ and in the entertainment industry. And so that nightlife, you run into these people and just ended up getting really good at it. Was dating a lot of women at the time. One of them introduced me to this dude who she said, "Well, he's got a straight male escort agency." And I said, "Does this even exist? Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, so you're telling me there are women out there, and this is everybody's reaction at that time, right? Was this doesn't exist? This can't be real."
yeah.
Turns out, actually was, and so I met him, and again, working my sort of ethnic ambiguity to the maximum, he was like, "You know what? I think you fill a niche within our agency. I think there would be a demand for you amongst our clientele." And was getting little gigs, twos and fews, like maybe twice a month. I go out on a thing, make a couple extra grand per month. And when I had first met him, he told me, you know, we filmed a pilot for a TV show for Showtime about the agency, a reality show.
Okay.
But I don't think you'd be interested in that. You're a software developer, all that. And I told him, yeah. First off, I thought he's bullshitting me, right? I'm having a meeting in LA with a dude I've never met before. We're at like what was it, Mosaic Hotel in Beverly Hills by the pool, and he's telling me all this shit about an agency that I don't even believe exists and all of this. So I'm like, whatever, man. You shot a pilot for Showtime. This is classic LA conversation, right? Just
Yeah.
bullshitting me, grifter. And so it was all real, like it was 100% real. And one morning I woke up and he was just like, there was a message from him on my phone, and he said, "Vin, you're on the show. Don't say no." And 2 weeks later, without meeting a producer or anything like that, I was in Las Vegas shooting the first season of the TV show Gigolos for Showtime. And we did 6 seasons of that. And it was about our agency and what we did. And, in the meantime and in between time, it was the best marketing possible. So while it was great making that TV money, it was even better the money that I was making, with my actual clients, because of the marketing that the show was doing. So, pornography industry, I would say, like, yes, I guess technically because there was filmed sex, but I was in the sex industry as an escort, and this was like filming what I was doing anyway. I guess you could say that just uncensored in that way.
Mm.
So that's a little more of the context. I would never do just flat out porn.
Mm.
That's I actually find that repugnant.
Mm.
But the reason why I agreed with this show was because I mean all of the people on that show were like real people. So basically the offer was essentially our agent before every season would reach out to the list of women who had contacted him over that year or whatever and say, look, are you interested in having a date with one of these guys? Like, basically, Showtime is willing to foot the bill if you're willing to let it be filmed. And a lot of women were like, okay, it's worth it to me to do that. And especially the ones who were like, well, I'm an exhibitionist anyway. And many of them ended up becoming my clients later, after we did our thing with the cameras there. But
Mm.
it was unscripted. Everything
So
that you
this
see
was
is
all
what you
shot
see
for Showtime.
for Showtime.
Oh,
For
okay.
Showtime. Yeah. So if you run across clips of me on like Pornhub or whatever, those are clips that are coming off the show on Showtime, right?
Uh,
Which you can get on YouTube from Showtime's On Demand, or you can watch on Showtime On Demand or whatever. But yeah, there was real sex with real individuals happening, not staged, not porn stars. It was the first time I had met these women, unless they had been previous clients, and that was said on the show as well. And the interactions that we had were 100% real. So as you watch those women being seduced by myself and my colleagues, like that's real. We were doing the real thing. So that's it.
so was this legal?
So prostitution is not legal, but
Okay.
prostitution is the exchange of compensation for sexual services, which is the reason why the show was canceled as part of cancel culture. But like on Cops, when they would do the prostitution stings, they would always say, okay, you got to get him to say specifically, like, blowjob, $20, and then he agrees to it, right? Like
Mm.
it can't just be, hang out, because hang out is legal. So I never contracted for sex in any way or sexual services, and most escorts at the high end don't.
Mm.
If somebody ever brought up sex, like in terms of like, oh well, what can I get? And like, well, if I pay, I want to be sure that I can get XYZ. That's it. You never talk to them ever again.
Mm.
So it's like I was always paid up front for a set amount of time. So you book a set amount of time, 2 hours, 4 hours, weekend, whatever it is. I show up, you're going to hand me an envelope full of cash, and then whatever happens, happens. And
Mm.
at the end of the time, I leave. And that is 100% legal.
Mm. You basically paying to be somebody's friend. Paying for
Yeah,
somebody's company.
time and companionship.
Yeah.
Companionship is what you're paying for. Yeah. And
Oh.
so, it's just, you're not going to get it whittles down the people who are not, let's say, who are not sexually open, right? That business whittles down the people who are not sexually open, because ain't nobody booking. I could have just sat there for 2 hours and looked at you in the face, right? And then walked away.
Mm.
But no woman is going to, that's not what she's paying for. So she's not booking you again.
Mm.
And certainly at the end of my career, I've been retired for almost 3 years now, but towards the end of my career, I would say 90% of my money came from repeat clients.
Mm.
Probably 50% of that was from regulars who would see me every month.
Mm.
But I would see you build up a clientele over time, and so that it's like if you only see somebody once every 6 months, if you have enough of those people, your calendar is full.
Mm.
And then you have the people that you see maybe once every quarter. They would come into Vegas, or they would have a conference season, especially. Oh, I'm back for this conference. That was very, very popular. So
So are you
yeah, man.
dating? Are you dating at the same time, or are you just like, you know what, I'm getting ass, so I don't really need to date?
I was somebody who did. Not everybody does. Not all of the men in that business, and there aren't many. Some are married. So there are some married men who do that. I was dating the whole time, but most of that time, I'm trying to think if I dated like a square broad through that whole time. Maybe not dated, even slept with. I'm trying to think if I even, because they just weren't interesting to me for the most part. Like I was if you're a square, like you had to pay me, right? That was how I looked at it. So all of the women that I was seeing, like I was in long-term relationships with some of like the top escorts in the world. Um, so it was like you could only imagine what that was like. And then, they would always invite their girlfriends around and whatnot. So it was like, there were some of the craziest situations that I had ever been in my life. And then besides them, little casual dating of like strippers or um, cocktail servers, which in Vegas, especially those nightclub cocktail servers, I mean, you're in the sex industry,
Mm.
right? You're wearing the same thing you'd be wearing if you were working at a strip club, and you're being touchy feely and doing all of this. You're not giving a lap dance per se, but you're still giving that sexual social value to the point where they would have casting calls, not anymore because the clubs are closed, but they have casting calls for those bottle servers, and the top ones at the top clubs make six figures in tips every year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them high six figures, like because it's $1,000 bottle of alcohol for one bottle.
Right.
Somebody's got a $50,000 table that you're working, and that's just one of the like five tables you're working that night.
Mm.
Well, there's 18% built into the tip on that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Plus
it's like
whatever they give you on top of that.
exactly. So it's like some of these women would walk out, especially on big nights. You might walk out with $70,000 in one night in tips.
Wow. It's hard to turn that type of money down too, right?
That's what I'm saying. Well, why would you? Why
Right.
would you? But the competition is fierce. So, the big pool parties, the big mega clubs, those top cocktail servers, they all have Instagrams. You better believe that. And they're like 7 million followers, 5 million followers, and they're a cocktail server. But they're some of the baddest bitches you've ever seen in your life. I mean, like beyond bad. And this is Vegas. Like, so they're Vegas 11s, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Vegas is a whole nother world. I took my shorty down there. Her first time she
Mm-hmm.
went to Vegas with me this year. And you know, prior to I told her about the hoes, like the prostitution that happens out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just pointing out, like, look at that girl right there. You see her right there? She's about to like pick up that dude. And she's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. Like, she's like, her ass is hanging out. I'm like, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
it goes down out here, you know?
It does. It does. I mean, that was. I mean, it was a great adventure. It was something that I'm glad that I did. It changed me a lot as a person. I evolved a lot as a man. But also part of that evolution was it's pretty dark, man. There are some dark elements to it. You really got to get in touch with your shadow and learn how to separate yourself from that, or learn how to, let's say, get right with it and control it, because I've seen it take so many people under, whether that's drugs, whether that's depression. Literally last week, one of my co-stars, I mean, he's sitting in jail right now because I guess supposedly on some kind of drugs. I don't know what he was on. He killed a woman in his house, strangled her to death. This is just last week.
Wow.
And this is a dude who's like probably one of the most spiritually put together people that I've ever met. Deep into yoga, and his diet, nutrition, and world travel, multilingual, just a really multi-ethnic, just a really like very aware dude. And like if it can take somebody like that down, I say my first daughter saved my life. I tell my wife that all the time, that she and my daughter saved my life. Because um, that easily could have been me. It easily could have been me. You have a
Mm.
lot of cash, a lot of access to all of the vices of the world at the highest level, and your ego goes insane, And then you start inevitably, like, you see a lot of dark stuff, you see a lot of occult stuff around you, you see the sort of spiritual and mystical way that power really happens, and it's very tempting, and I mean, it's very easy to go into the dark side of that. Whereas, like, I think that's why I really have liked recently reconnecting with and seeing the things that you're doing, and like the entire Hotep concept is
Mhm.
really the light. It's the light side of that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
That it still has the mystic idea. When I say mystic, I say it as versus materialist, where it's like
Mm.
belief and consciousness affects and changes reality.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
as opposed to the materialist view that says, well, reality is fixed and mechanistic and measurable, but that's not true. Like, that's not true at all. I look at an airplane flying through the sky and I'm like, that airplane wasn't there at the beginning of existence. You
Right.
know, human beings have been looking at the sky and that was supernatural, but it's really not. It's about belief. When a human has a belief and a conscious being has a belief, the degree to which they can change reality. Look at what Kanye is doing right now. I mean,
Yeah.
the degree to which a conscious individual can change reality is massive. And so the question is, do you go towards a left-hand path or do you go towards a right-hand path? And that left-hand path is powerful too, and darkness, but it's that metaphor of selling your soul to the devil. It will destroy you because it's got to eat from some energy, and the energy that it eats from is your soul.
Yes.
But whereas when you take the right hand path, the energy is from the Most High, and there's not enough energy that could ever be taken out of that. So you have an unlimited battery. Your battery, spiritual battery, never runs out because
Yes.
you've made a connection to the Most High. You know, and so that was for me. I was on that left hand path, and immense power. Like, I recognized that there was immense power and immense things that were happening. I was living a fantasy life. You know, I could have
Yeah.
anything, literally anything that I wanted, and more would just be there.
Mm.
But I could feel it pulling and taking from me, and who I was changing. You know,
Mm. Mm.
and my daughter saved my life in that way. She really did, because um, she's a very potent being, and it was a very auspicious time. And my wife is a very spiritually powerful woman in her own right, and it's just like saved my life, man.
Mm. I mean, you just said some powerful things about, I want to say a decade ago. I tested that I tested the waters, right? That very much, I love Star Wars, right? So I
Hmm.
tested the dark side, right? And I said, I know there's power here, and I knew there was power to the other side, right? So
Hmm.
I attempted the other side. I literally felt the power, but as you said, it pulls from you. So
Hmm.
bad things started happening around me. I was doing well, but bad things started happening to me that started affecting me, and then it started affecting the ego. And I said, "Oh no, oh no, we going to the light."
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so you said something earlier though I want you to expound upon. You said being in touch with your shadow. I've heard people say things like this before. Um, I think I have an understanding what this means, but can you give the people that are watching an understanding what that means to be in touch with your shadow?
Yeah, so this comes from, I think, best expounded by Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst. So he's kind of the counterpoint to Sigmund Freud. So you could say he's the mystic to Sigmund Freud's materialist, right? Two different ways of approaching psychology. His idea is that, really, that, Freud is very mechanistic. He says, if this, then this. If you were exposed to this in your childhood, then it's going to express itself like this. And to a degree, Jung is follows some of that, but he also says that there are some built-in archetypes, spirits, gods, patterns, however you want to say, that's built into our being, and that it will express themselves. And the shadow, we walk around in the world and we have our persona, our mask, and there's a persona that society needs us to have as well.
The ego
And
personality.
the ego personality, and for the most part, for most people, that goes toward let's say it goes toward the what we would, I think, call the righteous,
Okay.
the civilized.
Mm.
Civilized is a better way of saying it.
Okay.
That, but within us, and the reason why we are even on this planet, at the end of the day, human beings are the most badass predator that has ever existed on the face of this earth. We keep monsters in cages. Things that terrorized our ancestors, we keep them in cages. We can make them go extinct.
Yeah.
We decide if that species gets to live and continue on this earth or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's something a shark can't do. That's something a tiger can't do. I don't care how badass they are. They can't just decide that an entire species that formerly preyed on them is no longer able to exist. And not to mention all the ways that we've preyed on ourselves.
Mm.
And so the shadow is that part of you. And civilization requires that we push the shadow down. But the shadow is the predator. It is the predator aspect of you. And how do you truly protect yourself or your family, your people, from monsters if you have no capacity for monstrosity?
Mm.
And so it is this delicate balance of getting in touch at the deepest level that you can with the monster that is inside of you, the shadow, while at the same time keeping it at bay. So you have to become friends with it. You can't hide it because it's a part of you, and it will come out at the moments that you don't want, and it will come out in ways that you don't want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It will come out. So maybe you are not, actively attacking people physically on the street that piss you off, but because you're not in touch with your shadow, somebody pisses you off on the street, and you come home and you start drinking because you're trying to get that frustration away. Your boss pisses you off or whatever, and then your kid comes into the room, being a little bit loud playing, and you go after your kid or your wife, and that's because you don't have your shadow under control. And so you're not at peace with that aspect of you. And so that's really what it's about. And I mean, a lot of my journey that's been helpful with that. I've done nearly 20 ayahuasca ceremonies now, and that was very helpful. But my last one was also quite interesting because I feel like ayahuasca is a South American, I guess you could say, tea brew. DMT is kind of the active ingredient, but there's additional things happening, and you definitely feel a ancient female spirit that sort of comes and guides you through this interesting experience, and you get a lot of insight. But sort of my last one, was kind of like a send-off, like, okay, you don't really need this anymore. I don't have anything else for you. And I think that a lot of that was because I had reconnected. This is a what you might want to say pagan, an ancient form of spirituality. But I think that as I connected more with sort of the what is the more evolved monotheistic metaphor, the Judeo-Christian metaphor in many ways, that it was like there's more power there. It's a more powerful, more evolved system. Obviously that first monotheism coming from out of Egypt, and then the last thing that Sigmund Freud wrote, Moses and Monotheism, is basically, he wrote it on his deathbed saying, yeah, Judaism is the ancient Aten religion, and Moses was, a refugee of the Aten cult. He was a high priest of the Aten cult, and here's the proof that this is all Egyptian, and that this is all started by Akhenaten, and that this is the advancement of that mystery school science. That was the last thing Sigmund Freud wrote.
Hotep.
A European Jew was Moses and Monotheism, about how Moses was an Egyptian priest of the Aten. And so that, I think that is true. I think that is the stronger metaphor. These old systems, plant medicine, shamanism, are helpful, but you eventually are going to evolve to the much stronger system.
Y'all heard what he said? That shit come from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, Hotep. God damn it, Hotep. Great information. We're not just gonna slide right by this topic like that. We got a lot to expound upon here. How much time do I got with you tonight, or
As
this
much as
morning?
as much as you want, man. As
All
much
right.
this is important. I've been looking forward to this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I
as
mean,
much as you want, man.
I picked up a vibe from the a couple of times we spoke, and I let my spirit guide me. I said that on Rogan. I let my spirit guide me, and my spirit said, I asked my spirit. I said, who should I interview next? And Vin Armani came to mind, and now
Mm,
I'm seeing why. Because Vin
mm.
Armani is a mystic, and I consider myself a mystic as well. So, what led you? And I don't get to talk about this stuff much because, as Jesus said, you don't throw pearls to swine.
Hmm.
So I love having these conversations with people who are on that same plane of consciousness. What led you down this path to even, was it the ayahuasca ceremonies, or was there some reading and studying that happened prior to? What were you always studying, alternative roots of spirituality, so to speak?
Yeah, for as long as I can remember. So my father is a very spiritual person, um, and he really impressed upon me some of this mysticism, and really, in terms of it being important to be a man, that you had to be in touch with this. And he's also an entrepreneur. He passed away earlier this year, and very like
God bless. God bless.
yeah, thank you, and very, what would I say? He was a man of faith, very much about having a dream, and that your dreams and doing something new and novel and pulling into other dimensions and pulling that from out of pulling inspiration from out of other dimensions was always a big thing to him, and he impressed that upon me. I've always been open, and I was blessed really in my teens because my father's background as a tech entrepreneur. I always had computers around me. And then, the early days of the internet, but also bulletin boards and whatnot, this was the type of knowledge that was out there. Because those early individuals, you think of what they were coming from out of. Even the mathematics of it all. Like, if people haven't read the book Cryptonomicon, I know it's a super long one, but it's great on audiobook too. It's If you're into Bitcoin, it's basically it's a science fiction novel, or it was a science fiction novel. Now it's like historical fiction that is about that takes place two families, these two sets of characters that their children meet up. Starts in World War II with the code breakers, and then it goes to some guys who are creating something like Bitcoin, but it's also about like cypherpunks and cryptography and all of this amazing adventure story that spans all of these years. Super well written, science fiction classic. And one of the things that I love is that there's real characters in there, like Alan Turing, who created the first computer and who broke the Enigma code, the Germans' Enigma code that helped to win World War II. And so computers are what we call Turing machines. The computers that we have, he's basically the inventor of this, and he did it to break the German codes to win the war. And he's having these fictional discussions in there with one of the characters, but you get this idea that the math is mystical that's behind this.
Hmm.
These initial guys who created this, and I think you also see that we get to see it again in Bitcoin. With the religious veneration of the white paper and all of these things, that this inspiration for these things comes from out of another dimension. These are people who were tapped into something else. And yeah, it's technology, but like, it's mystical first. The
Yes.
idea is mystical first. It
Yes.
comes from somewhere else, right? And so, in the early days of the internet, when you really had to be searching around for information, this is what was out there. All the stuff about that's where I learned about UFOs and people talking about astral projection and mind control and neurolinguistic programming and all of these. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Right? I'm like 15 years old. Nobody else is talking about this shit.
Yeah.
And so then, I think it was also, and we've talked about this before. I then went to Howard University for university, and this is in the mid to late '90s in DC. And there's a lot of Hotep in DC at that point. And so that was the
Yes, it
first
is.
time that I was exposed to, Nubian Moors, and you go down the list, right? And especially on Howard's campus, and I was like, wow, there's just so much more going on here. And then in my formal studies as well, the Afrocentric view and of philosophy. And that's what I mean. That's my education is in philosophy. And doing it there in particular was like, I really saw this much kind of broader horizon, and so that never really went away from me, But and then I was involved in the rave scene and psychedelia, and so getting exposed to all of that as well, and you know, uh, exposed to every kind of psychedelic drug that's out there. So seeing that sort of new age side of things, but I never revisited. I was really very much against. Um, Organized religion. I didn't have time for the Bible. I was raised with it to a certain degree, but never really got into it. It was the last thing I wanted to read, the last thing that I thought was of any value. And it was probably about 2014 or 2015 that in an ayahuasca ceremony, which is a very serpentine, it's a vine. So you get all these sort of serpent visualizations. The movement is very serpentine. It's the vine communicates to you as a vine moves. So
Mm.
there's a lot of snake imagery and all of that. People see jaguars too, which have a very kind of like motion like this. And I just got this revelation that it was like, you need to look at Genesis because the serpent told the truth.
Mm.
And I was like, what is it? What the fuck is that? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And so that took me on a journey of like going back into that book and seeing that there was reflections of the other things that I had learned over the years from Eastern mysticism, the Egyptian, the Sumerian. So seeing all of these things come together, and I ended up doing there's a video series that I did 2017, I think it was, called the Ascendant Project. That's on my YouTube if people want to check it out. So it goes into this sort of how this all happened and the esoteric nature of that. But again, I was still on the left-hand path,
Okay.
right? I was still seeing this as, oh, these hidden messages that are in this, this is from the Egyptians, and this is hidden, and it's a message to those on the left-hand path, and it's a message of power, and it's secret information for the priests, and like those, to worship these ideas of the Most High and all of that is like, that's for suckers, and like there's no power there and all of that. But I think that again, it was just like hitting that level of deep darkness, and then having my life shift and seeing this new life come into the world when I'm at that point, and knowing that like, well, this isn't sustainable. Like this dark shit is not sustainable
Mm.
for my child. It's not sustainable for me as a father. Like, oh, okay, now I get it. And then I was immediately able to see like, oh, that's the Most High. Like it's the idea that like, yes, this is the power, but there's got to be something at the top of the pyramid,
Yeah.
right? And it ain't me. It ain't me.
Right.
It ain't me.
Right.
I'm not here. Like
Yeah.
it's got to be something bigger than me, and it's got to be something that I wake up in the morning and I'm in awe of, and I'm pushing toward and trying to be more like and more of. And so that was when it shifted for me, and all of the stuff that I had learned all like came into one. It's like like a big bang, and it was,
Yeah.
for me, it was very much like a new start. And so I went from somebody who I would call like beyond an atheist, because I really believed that it was a mechanism and that it was like a trick,
Right.
to somebody that where now I live my life on faith, almost
Yes.
to the point where sometimes I'm like, dog, are you crazy or something like? And, I talk to my wife about it constantly, and I'm just like, it's about faith. Everything that has happened, like our life is good, and everything that has happened is because faith. Like,
Yeah.
so just have faith. And when she's worried or concerned about something or whatever, I'm like, look, just look at the past and look at where faith has gotten us. So just have faith,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. You actually hit on something that's really real and reminding me of what I said when I went down that dark path, and it was denial of the Most High. That's really what it was. It wasn't like I was doing anything particularly dark. It was just denial of the Most High, denial of the higher consciousness, and saying, "No, I am the God,
Hmm.
not a God,
Hmm.
the God." Right? And
Hmm.
and and like you said, there is power in that, but the darkness comes with it. Right? The dark entities of the physical
Hmm.
realm and the spiritual realm start to surround you. So you'll have more
Oh man. I
criminals and
mean,
drugs.
I mean, that's the scariest part about it is
Yeah.
like, and I mean, I guess that's something that I've glossed over, and it's kind of weird because it was one of the most impactful things that was the wake up for me was while I was at the same time that I was gaining a lot of power, I was lit. There were physical demons embodied as individuals who were latching onto me at
Yeah.
every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and like to the point where people, like I talk a lot now and people can't really get it, but like I talk about I use the term psychopaths, but what I'm really talking about is like predatory entities,
Mm.
and these are, it's I hate to use the word possession, but it's like I really feel like I have been possessed by different ideas or not entities, but energies or ideas as I have moved through my life, right?
Yes.
And there are some people who are possessed by certain energies, and certain energies interlock with each other.
Yes.
And when you're on that left hand path of darkness, the people who will come around you and lock into you will be powerful individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and at least initially will seem like they are raising both of your power, but they are also exactly what is going to destroy you.
Parasites.
Yes. Yes, for sure. They're looking for that power, right? They're looking for that power. And if you for an instant deny them the power that they started out to come to get, oh man, they're ready to destroy you. You may as well, not only should you not exist, they want to obliterate you into atoms and suck the atoms into themselves.
Uh,
Your destruction, the energy of your destruction will be the next fuel for them.
uh Cell Saga. You watch Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Oh, okay. Dragon Ball Z is this guy called Cell, and Cell he basically sucks the life out of you, right? And
That's
and,
it.
and absorbs your power. And that part was called Cell Saga. Yo, that's exactly it. You're bringing back, those memories that I had when I knew about the dark side and was like, yo, fuck that. I'm going to try this shit out, and
Hmm.
it wasn't long until I said, you know what? Nah, I'm too much of a punk for this shit. So I had to leave that alone and then come into, like you say, the right. I love how you use the left versus the right. My pops
Hmm.
always, something I related with too is you said your dad was very much in spirituality, right? And I relate that to that too, right? Like my dad is the one that introduced me to mysticism at a very early age and taught me how to hone my intuition as a child, right?
Hmm.
And then, like you said, like we kind of veer off the path, and then when you veer off the path, you actually lose that connection with your intuition, right? You lose that connection
Hmm.
that the Most High gives you to manifest
Hmm.
things. And then, so I always hear my dad sometimes he even text me, he says, "Stay on the path," or he used to. Like now, I'm on the path, so he doesn't do it anymore. But he'll sense it and he'll say, "Stay on the path, stay on the path."
Hmm. Hmm.
and and that's so important, and that's something that somebody just retweeted just now on when I was talking about Joe Rogan. He's saying, what contributed to some of my success, and I'm just like, yo, like straight up faith, bro, like saying
Yep.
like this is going to happen and believing it, right? and
Hmm.
and and so like I tell people all the time, I say like I don't work, right? Like I'll just
Hmm.
draw shit into my cipher,
Hmm.
and I mean, I do work. I do, you have to
Sure.
do or et labora, work and pray, right? but I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to work as hard because I'm using the power of the Most High,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Mm-hmm.
shows you the way,
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, Vin, I had no idea you was this deep, man. So, when was your first ayahuasca experience?
I think that was. By the way, I'm seeing my cam being weird. Is my cam being weird for you
Yeah, it'll come
on
back.
the broadcast? Hold on. Let me see if I can.
There you go.
Boom.
Yeah.
That tech. Okay. Yeah. My first ayahuasca ceremony would have been 20. It must have been 2012 because
Hmm.
I know what house I was living in at the time, and that was also the same year that I bought my first Bitcoin. So I remember that location and I remember the year. So yeah, it would have been 2012. That was my first set of ceremonies. So my
So,
first cycle of ceremonies.
so how do you hear about it? Is it like, you're on YouTube and, because that's how I first learned
No.
about ayahuasca. It was like YouTube, or does some shaman come up to you out of the blue and say, hey, you need to have this experience, Vin?
Well, ayahuasca does it. Like you learn over time that like she calls and like this. Well, this is another way that like in that experience, I definitely understood that like spirits are real. Like
Hmm.
all of this stuff is real. Like when you have an experience, you can't, and it's actually happening. What are you going to deny your own experience? Then you're just a fool,
Yeah.
right? So like all of this, but basically what happened was I had known about ayahuasca in sort of nebulously. Like I say, since I was 15, I had been involved in like the rave scene and psychedelic culture. And
Okay.
again, with like my researching of all of these shamanism and alternate spirituality, I knew that there was this tradition of ayahuasca, part of shamanism and all of that. Um, Terrence McKenna had talked about it. I had heard Terrence McKenna talks where he was talking about that and mushrooms and DMT and whatnot at that time. And so it was there in my mind, and just one afternoon, I was just driving down the street in Vegas, and bored, and passed by this strip club, and was like, "Oh, they're open. Let me just go in and get a drink." Right in the
Hmm.
afternoon, and just popped in. Next to nobody in there, a few girls dancing, and just one sat down next to me, and she just had like just interesting vibe. Right, you just see somebody, and you're like, "Oh, you got an interesting vibe," and we started talking. I don't know how we got into a discussion of sort of psychedelics, and that sort of spiritual work. But she was like, "Oh yeah, ayahuasca's been great for me." And I was like, "Oh, what? You done ayahuasca? You went to like Peru or something like that, and you did all that?" She's like, "Oh no, there's a group here in Vegas. It's kind of like a secret invite-only group, and they bring in shamans, and they bring in the ayahuasca and all of this." And she's like, "I've been doing it for a couple of years now." And I said, well, I want to go. I want to be part of that group. You need to give me your number. And of course, I'm sure I don't. She probably thought whatever I was trying to hit on, and maybe I was. She's pretty hot. You know what I mean? So I was.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I became interested in nothing from her except access to this group. And so she did give me her number, and then I bugged her for like the next 2 months, like about every 3 days or so.
Uh,
I'd be like, "Yo, can you connect me with?" And she was always like, "Oh, they're out of town." No, 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 no. Eventually, she did connect me with with who ended up organizing and bringing in shamans. Who's now a shaman? Her name is Kat Courtney. I had her on my show, the Vin Armani Show. If people want to go on YouTube and just look in Vin Armani Kat with the K, it'll show up. And she's been an organizer for that amount of time. She's since then really developed her skills. She was an apprentice, but my first ceremonies was with a shaman liner who was like straight out the jungles, man, like straight out the jungles, and mind blowing experience. But it's basically this private group, and if you know somebody and they think you're cool, they'll introduce you, and then if you check out, the first they got to say, okay, well, tell me your background, tell me what you're interested in, tell me your experiences in the past. And then if they like you and think you'll be a good match, then, you're invited to come and sit in for a ceremony. So I took full advantage of that through, and then I introduced people to that group as well during the time that I've been a part of it.
does it taste like ass?
pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I
It's
heard.
it's hard to describe the taste. For most people, the first time they try it, it's not as bad
Okay.
because you haven't thrown it up yet. So there's this. I guess there's this natural sort of human memory thing where if you've eaten something and then you've gotten sick and you've thrown it up, oftentimes people will no longer like the taste of that thing, even if they liked the taste of it before. And so when you first taste it, it tastes like maybe like dirt and honey and unsweetened chocolate mixed together, kind of.
Mm. Mm.
And then with a kind of a planty essence maybe in there, like a bark type essence. And then even now, like from then on out, if you even think about it, you start to get nauseous and sick to your stomach
Okay.
because it's it makes you throw up.
Does it?
You purge. Yeah, you purge. That's part of the process, and it times it out with like I call it like a psychic massage. It goes in, makes you deal with things you haven't wanted to deal with, you know, and then you purge. And what's crazy is that like people will purge and they'll see a black snake come out of them.
Mm.
They'll see like I've had a situation where like I purged and I could see, feel, and hear gushing stuff coming out. And I could feel the weight of the bucket that I had, increasing with this black mass that was filling it up. And then in the morning when I come out of it and I go to like clean my bucket out, there's like a little bit of spit in it.
So
Yeah.
nothing. So you actually didn't purge much at all.
No, but I saw the psychic purging, right? So you're purging the negativity out of you, and you see it, like
Mm.
you see it and you
So it
feel
feels
it.
like
But
vomit. It
even there
feels
was
like you feel like you're
it's vomit.
vomiting.
It's vomit. Yep.
Acid
But
reflux.
oftentimes there's not actually nothing has come out of you. You just you
Wow.
saw it while in the ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what about the dreams that night? Are you having like crazy dreams while you're sleeping in?
So you don't sleep. You do it at night, and it generally lasts until the morning. It could be between 4 and 8 hours, depending upon how massive your dose is and whether you re-up the dose. During that time, you have a shaman who is singing songs called icaros, which are like these ancient songs, and they're monitoring shamans. I've sat now with 4 or 5 shamans, and the most experienced of them who talk about it say that they actually see like a grid almost, an energy grid, and they can actually see changes in the energy grid depending upon what somebody's going through in their particular experience.
Mm.
And like this is really real because like you'll be sitting there or laying there and you'll be going through something really bad and you're not moving, right? But you're going through something and then all of a sudden there's the shaman right up on you singing, to get you through that period, blowing the sacred tobacco on you, like getting it, and then you calm out. So they can actually see things happening of just people like laying there. They can see what's going on. It's very strange,
Mm.
right? But this is the spiritual practice, and so what you get for the most part for most people is, there are songs that sort of take you in and induct you. And my experience has always been that you sort of feel this thing coming on, and then you close your eyes, and this tapestry sort of comes in front of your eyes, waving. The colors are like the colors of the inside of the ayahuasca, which is like a red and a blue, and it's waving and waving. And then a certain part of the ceremony comes on, and it actually like opens. This tapestry like opens like this, and then you go in.
Mm.
And now you're in the space, and she's going to do whatever she's going to do. But it's generally like go into something, work through it, insecurities that you had, pain from your childhood, things that you hadn't wanted to think about, whatever it is, things that gave you, especially insecurities in particular. And what's so interesting about it is this is why I say it's like a psychic massage, that she makes you deal with the insecurity. You got to feel it. You're going to feel it 100%. This is what it is. You feel it, feel it, feel it. Sucks. Maybe you purge. And then it's like a weight has been lifted off you, and you blast into like some amazing sacred geometry, or you're in the jungle, or you're doing something, and you get this cool little like Candyland experience. Wow. And then, okay, back to do some more work. Let's go. So it's like go in, go in, go in, release, go in, go in, go in, release. And the most interesting part, and when I knew this was real, was going into an insecurity, things that I had not wanted to think about, things that I had not wanted to deal with, issues that I had had with my parents or whatnot, things that I couldn't forgive from people, that even just thinking about it pissed me off, made me angry. Dealing with it in a ceremony, and then after the ceremony and forever after that, thinking about it, and there was nothing there. No anger, no insecurity, not upset. Couldn't make myself angry about it if I wanted to. And I was like, okay, this is real. Because I can't even fake this. Like, this has made me angry for a decade. And now I think about it and I'm not upset. And then it becomes really easy to pick up the phone and say to somebody, you know what, I forgive you. We're good. We're good. Because you really do. You're like, I'm over it. I'm literally really over it.
It seems like some sort of resolve with the subconscious mind.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's, I think you're unlocking things, and thus the purging metaphor, right? You're holding on to all of these things, and this is sort of opening doors. And this spirit, what's so interesting about this spirit, and why people who have done ayahuasca are so convinced that this is real, is that you feel an old female spirit, a grandmother. And men feel it, women feel it. It doesn't matter what your cultural background is. It doesn't matter who you are. Every single person is like, yes, it's a grandmother. And she's a harsh grandmother, right? So my first ceremony was so interesting. Because a lot of people have said that they got this. I had never heard this before, but I went in, you go in thinking, oh, I've got some problems or issues or questions I want to ask. I went under, I felt the spirit there, fully with me, right? And she was sort of waiting for me to do something, to interact with her, And so I said, all right, I came here, I've got a question, like,
you're conscious. You're conscious at this point, but in this world.
You're in this world. And the interesting part about it is that, like, you can very easily pop out. If you just open your eyes, you'll have a little bit of visuals, but you'll be out of it. You can put yourself back in or back out. You can take yourself as deep as you want, but you can come out of it whenever you want. Right? You can pull yourself out.
Okay.
But you're defeating the purpose, But
right.
A lot of people do that throughout the process and they don't get shit out of it. So in this moment, I say to her, okay, here's my I don't even remember what my question was, right? Here's my question, here's my concern. And there was a pause, and what came back was, oh, little child, that's not your question. This is your question. Boom. And here's the answer. Boom. And I was like shot into fucking outer space. And I was like, holy shit. And a download. It was like a broadband download of information, like brrr, just coming in. I was like, okay. Okay. And it was the answer. Wow. It was the answer to the question I didn't even know I had.
That subconscious question.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh shit.
So it's a practice of surrender. I think that practice was the most important in terms of me being able to go on the right-hand path, because the right-hand path is all about surrender, right? Faith is all about surrender.
Yes, it is.
And what we see, the real problem as you look out into the world, resistance. Like whether you want to say, like, what's the real problem of what's happening in terms of all this COVID shit and the lockdowns? What's the underlying behavior that's taking place? Or if you talk about the protests and what is it all about? Resistance. And it's like, no. Resistance. That's the devil. The devil is the one who resists. The devil is resisting.
Talk to him, Vin. Talk to him, Vin.
That's Satan is the resistor.
Yes. Then we get into it.
You understand? It's like, no. You and how do you resist God? How do you resist a hurricane? How do you resist a typhoon? How do you resist a volcanic eruption? Right? How do you resist? How does a woman resist her menstruation?
Yeah.
Huh? What's she
Yeah.
gonna think her way to not bleeding? What's she gonna do? And so that's what you see throughout it all, is that it's like the answer is not in resistance, man. The answer is in surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yo, there's a virus on the loose. It might kill you if you're not healthy. Yo, surrender to that. So what does that mean? Well, get fucking healthy. Healthy people aren't dying. So what does that mean? Get your nutrition together. This is the time for you to exercise. You've been waiting for a reason? Huh? You couldn't motivate yourself to get to the gym? Okay, it's life or death now. But instead, what do? They resist. They close the gyms.
Mm. Mm.
Yo,
Mm.
what do you need to be healthy? I will tell you straight up, one of the most important things for myself, for health, is being able to be out and about and communicate with people.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many workout tips, nutrition tips, and whatnot I've gotten from meeting people in bars.
Mm.
Friends of friends. Hey, come meet us for a drink. And then I spend 2 hours talking with somebody who changes my fucking life and makes me more healthy, who puts me up on some supplements, or who puts me up on something that I should be doing, you know what I mean, with my exercise routine, or how I should be stretching, or whatnot. And what have
Mm.
they done? They've closed down our ability to meet with strangers.
Mm. Mm.
How the fuck are you going to be healthy?
Mm. Yeah, the conference is very important. Yes.
Dog, we are each other's like, if you shut down our ability to communicate with each other, and even to communicate the inconvenient things, cancel culture, censorship,
Mm.
all that.
Mm.
Think about how much of these conspiracy theories are health related. Very, very many.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very many. The concern is that X thing is happening and it's going to make us less healthy. Whether that's vaccines, whether that's 5G, doesn't really matter whether you believe in it or not, because there's valuable information inside of all of that. Whether you think you should be getting a vaccine, whether you don't give a shit about 5G, these are people researching the health effects of the environment.
Yeah.
And if we're in a time when we need to be healthy, those are the last fucking people. You want to be healthy and you're going to shut down the people who are devoting their lives, whether you agree with their conclusions or not, to researching the health effects of what's going on in your environment? You're an idiot.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. For me, it's really been the same thing with these protests, right? Is that it's all about, that's the reason why they have no demands.
Right.
What are the fucking demands? Defund the police is not a goddamn demand. That's not why you're out here.
Right.
Like, what are your demands? What do you want? No, they just want to resist. I'm angry. Okay, you're angry. That's good. But what do you want? You just want to destroy shit? That's resistance, right? As opposed to saying surrender, it's like, look, the world, there is a history that has led us up to this point, right? And our goal moving forward is to not repeat the mistakes of the past.
Mm-hmm.
To stop the sins of our fathers right here. But we have to acknowledge the sins of our fathers to go full circle. If you're going to tear down the statues that represent your shadow of your history, and you don't get in touch with that shadow, it's going to express itself in other ways.
And it's going to come back again, too.
Every time. Every time. You have to recognize the sins of the father are visited upon the son, because the son doesn't learn.
Mm.
When the son learns, and because the root of sin, the word sin, hamartia, is about missing the mark. So when they're talking about that in the Hebrew Bible, and they're talking about sinning, they're talking about like firing an arrow and missing the mark. That's your sin. Right? It's that you didn't hit the target. You were aiming for something and you missed. And hopefully that would be, you're aiming for the Most High. You were aiming for the righteous path, and you weren't able to do it. But it's like, if you don't see that you missed, if you start taking the arrows out from where you missed, how are you going to readjust?
Right.
If you don't know where you went wrong, how do you readjust?
Yeah.
You can't. You know, it's like if you're
I love
going and
that.
shooting and you're shooting to the left, it's like, well, adjust to the right. You need to adjust to the right. But if you don't know where on the target you hit, you're fucked.
Right.
And
You
that's
can't.
what you do every time you pull down a statue, every time you rewrite, try to memory hole some history, and that's
Mm,
what Orwell is talking about in 1984. You can't correct yourself if you don't know where you went wrong.
mm, 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 mm. God damn, Vin. Fucking me up tonight, man. Chad Lemoyne, 199 super chat. I'm ethnically ambiguous on all paperwork. Shout out to Chad. Raider said, thank you both, Hotep and Build. Yeah, that's like the thing, like, right, like shut up and code, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what you're saying, right? It's like, don't resist the coming wave of communism,
Mm-hmm.
build your own and make communism irrelevant.
That's
Make
right.
so when people say you know the we have status and we have the state. Well, the state exists because everyone keeps taking the left path, so now the
Mm-hmm.
people on that left path have an excuse to provide the demons to join with that evil spirit within you, within that shadow
Mm-hmm.
within you. But if you chose the righteous path, these demons that control the state would be irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you have to invite the vampire in. Like that. I mean, that's the thing that we're talking about, the demons attaching to you, right? Like and
Mhm.
I know that this is probably true for you too, but it's like I was if I look back and I'm honest with myself, I was actively seeking them to attach to me.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
mm.
if I'm honest,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
could I could put it on them, but there wasn't a single time that I didn't even pursue them, right? Like I was given an opportunity to just wash my hands. I didn't take that opportunity. I was like, and the reason why, again, because I thought I was at the top of the hierarchy. I thought I
Mm.
was at the top of the pyramid. Oh, I can handle this.
Yeah.
I see that this person is a problem, but I can handle this. And this is like the Faustian bargain, right? This is
Hmm.
this is going back to the whole occult notion and the story of Faust is that he believed that he could summon demons, but he was Faust,
Right.
right? I am the great Faust. I can handle these demons.
Mm.
I can handle this. Maybe somebody else couldn't, but I can handle these demons. And we hear that over and over and over. And it doesn't matter whether your demon is like a high level psychological, archetypal, mythological demon, or whether your demon is just in a form of a bottle, or a bag of powder, or whatever it is, or gambling,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Everybody's always like, I got it. I can handle this demon. Well, that's because you think you're the most high.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then you notice that like the most effective way of beating those demons, not, by far, 12 step. And the first aspect of 12 step, like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, that shit actually works.
Yes, it is. It does.
It really works. Like you talk to people who are hardcore drug addicts or hardcore alcoholics, it's the only thing that works.
Hmm.
And the very first thing that you do is you have to admit, that's the first step.
I got a problem.
I'm not the most high.
Mm.
I got a problem and I can't solve it because
Mm.
I'm not the most high.
Mm.
There's something else at the top. You got to put something else at the top of the pyramid. That's why
Hmm.
people say, "Oh, this is it's a religious cult." A lot of that's what a lot of people say, that it's about religion, but it's like, now you miss it. It's just that religion is the description of the same process,
Right. It's
right?
the
It's
ritual.
that it's like somebody realized that there's a most high.
Hmm.
Akhenaten realized that there's a most high.
Right.
That this is the real evolution of our system.
Hmm.
That they had a system for thousands of years that had been working pretty good, but obviously it must have reached a point of corruption where the technology wasn't sufficing to take that society forward anymore.
Mm.
And so they
Mm.
had to innovate a new psychological construct. And that construct, what we call monotheism, the idea of the Aten, the idea of the Aten is that we need to, instead of having these diverse points that we look to and worship in these various cults, we as a society need to have a single thing at the top of a value hierarchy so that we can have a shared consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to figure out what that is. So it's like the worship of the Aten, they had gotten the point that like we have to worship a single thing. We have to have a single thing at the top of the hierarchy. What they hadn't gotten to yet, because that could only evolve over time, is what are the characteristics of that? Right? So Moses leaving and Moses evolving it into the 10 Commandments and evolving it into the covenant with the Most High. The idea of the covenant is, okay, if we agree to do this, the Most High will agree to do this. So if we do this, we'll get this. So that's your beginning, right? And then you last for a long time where you've made this deal, and that's kind of that's the Lord, that's Yahweh, you're a servant, you know. Then you get to Christ, and Christ says, no, it's a little bit of a different deal. You kind of got to do the same shit, but it's just your relationship to the Most High is different. The Most High isn't your Lord and Master. The Most High is your Father. So it's not that this idea or entity wants you to serve it for no purpose. You're serving because you are meant to rise and to be able to be an example and a conduit and to grow into an adult as a father cares for his child so that the child can grow up to take care of their own children. Right? And so like, and that's where you're able to get the relationship that we have with children now, which is very different than the relationship that other societies have had with children. And certainly Western societies have had with children, right? And it's of course it's a double-edged sword, because then when you say, oh, I'm a special being, you also get the negative. You get the communism.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you get the positive and you get the negative when you have the new evolution of thinking. But it's like, I think we're actually primed for another evolution of thinking. And I think we may be witnessing it happening. I mean, people, you know, this whole Kanye is crazy thing, people are absolutely wrong. Like, this dude is pushing forward an idea, or he's in a lineage.
Yeah.
Right?
He's
in a lineage. Yeah. And so people got to listen. You know, he's channeled into something. He's having a hard time articulating, but having done ayahuasca ceremonies, I understand what he's going through.
Right.
And then I've had at least one experience. It was actually after, weirdly enough, it wasn't because of this, but I think it was auspicious. I had traveled up to Toronto, and as part of a week of very high spirituality level shit, ended up at one of Jordan Peterson's biblical lectures back in 2017. There was only like 200 people in the audience, and he was talking about the Old Testament, and I was in Toronto at the time. And I got home, and for 3 days, that was just one of a series of many, many things. So I was just on a high level. For 3 days, man, I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. I thought it was going crazy. I really did. I had energy. I was getting incredible downloads of information, difficult to articulate. You know, I've talked with other people, and they've said that they've had the same thing, same amount of time too, 3 days. No drugs involved, no nothing. But having done so many psychedelic drugs, I was like, I'm high right now. I'm on a psychedelic high. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, but it put me into a fast state and all of this. And you know, now I fast regularly, and I get inspiration, but not on that level. And it's like, what's happening with him? He's in that state, obviously, all the time. And some people obviously they just naturally are. And so you gotta, when someone's in that state, man, you gotta listen. You gotta listen. You know, they're channeling, and they don't even know. And now I'm starting to understand why he's constantly shushing people and saying, no, let me finish. Please,
right.
Just let me.
Because you're cutting that stream.
Because the stream of information that's coming in, if he doesn't keep talking, he can't go back.
Right.
It's coming in real time, right? Yes. So it's like, it's a live stream.
Yes.
So he's trying to communicate the live stream, and it's like, if you interrupt him, there may be some important information in this point of the live stream.
Yes.
That may be important to explain what's coming next.
Right.
So you just need to let him finish until he's done, like channeling, right? Like Casey, or one of these channelers from the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a few people who show up on the earth who are able to do that, and it's like, if you don't think that this might be a dude who's able to do that, well, he's a multi-platinum selling artist, a
Mm-hmm.
billionaire. He's
Mm-hmm.
married to arguably the most desirable woman on the planet. He's a household name. You know
Something
what I mean?
special. Something special's happening there.
Some special.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, man. I think we're primed. Sort of what his rise and him doing what he's doing right now says is we're primed for a next evolution of
Mm.
this thinking, this mode of thinking, like a return to that. So I'm real interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah, you hit on some great points there with Kanye, the stream of consciousness, and how upset he gets when people interrupt that. And that black girl is really working my nerves because Kanye was in that midstream of consciousness and then she like bark and it's just like, damn, like let my man finish his thought. Like I wanted to hear that. Like he was going somewhere with
Mm-hmm.
that. And another thing you
Mm-hmm.
said was you cannot put God in the words. You cannot put the most high in the words. There are some things and some feelings and some essences you can't translate into the English language. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Mm-hmm.
people say he's having a hard time expressing himself, it's because the language he's been given doesn't allow him to, first and
That's right.
foremost. And
That's right.
also, the thoughts are so high that when they come down to the lower plane, if you don't give yourself time to understand, you'll never understand. If you don't give yourself
Mm-hmm.
time to translate what he's saying, you'll never understand what he's saying. But he's saying
Mm-hmm.
some really deep. And then people would talk about how he broke down, right? And how he broke down crying. And I was talking to my friend last night about this. He's like, "Oh, he was a bitch. He broke down crying." And I let my friend
Nah.
talk. He's just whatever. But I'm like, I think that's a first of all, he's a human being. Like this is the first time we're seeing a human being or a celebrity. Usually, celebrities have to keep this like facade up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
dropped that facade and shown you his ability to be vulnerable in a live crowd and in front of the media.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how it speaks to how evil people are and how left path people are to make fun of
Mm-hmm.
somebody for crying about his decision to not abort his child.
Mm-hmm.
And they look
And
at that as
yeah.
weakness. They looking at it as weakness, but really it's strength.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think also what people got to realize is that, you know, he was feeling that in the moment because, again, he's channeling, right?
Yes.
So
Mm.
it's like,
He's
it's
back at
not
that
like,
moment.
yeah, it's not like those were prepared remarks. It's not like he had even come on that stage thinking he was going to talk about that. And so he had thought, oh, how am I going to phrase this and all that? That's what's so different about what he's doing, is
Mm.
that it was like, it was in the stream of consciousness. And you know what? Again, in that spiritual moment or in an ayahuasca ceremony, it is incredibly common for someone in the ceremony to all of a sudden break into sobbing
Mm.
because they didn't expect what was coming in the
Mm.
stream of consciousness.
Mm.
And it hit them at the deepest of levels because they've left themselves. In order to channel like that, you have to leave yourself open.
Mm.
So when he's in this moment, he is an open, raw soul. And so it hit him unexpected.
Yeah.
He's just channeling, right? He's channeling, and then he channels that through, and it's coming through as a feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Like like you say, it's not the words, because it maybe some of it is coming through as individual words and he's stringing it together as words, but it's
Right.
coming through as a feeling. And so it came through as the feeling of, imagine if you killed your daughter,
Right.
right? And it was, he got to feel the feeling of him killing his daughter, who he
Mm.
loves more, literally more than his own life.
Mm.
He got and any parent I have. I'm sure you have. In a weird moment or whatever, you get the feeling of what if I lost my child?
Mm,
You know, or you read something in the news or something and you
mm,
feel it and it
mm,
shakes you to the core in that
mm,
moment.
mm, mm,
But if you were a raw soul that was just channeling in that moment, of course you break. There's nothing else you can do except
mm.
break down. And he
Right,
was trying to get himself back under control.
right, right,
But what more, like, he broke down in the way that he would break down had somebody just told him that his daughter died,
right,
because that's what he had just been told. He
right.
was given that was channeled through him to experience the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through experiencing the feeling that he could have then the further discussion that came after that he needed to have, and brought that woman up on stage to talk about abortion and to talk about it in the way that he did, to have the empathy for all the sides and to present it in the way that he did, which is a way you've never heard a presidential candidate talk about, or anybody who's even involved in politics, or really anybody, period, talk about the abortion issue.
Yeah. Right, 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 right. That's why I said this is the first time we've had a human run for president.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Because everyone else is playing a role. And I think Kanye understands how to play a role and
Mm-hmm.
also how to be conscious of playing that role. Some people lose themselves in that role and you see them break
Mm-hmm.
down later on in life, right? Like some YouTuber I know committed suicide because he didn't know who he was. He was playing that YouTuber
Mm-hmm.
role for so long. You might know who I'm talking about, but I can't recall the name. But Kanye is he's very conscious. You remember if some of the first albums he's saying, you know, we're all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it, right? And he's
Yep.
talking and he's always discussing materialism and the
Mm-hmm.
good and bad of materialism, right? So when people say
Mm-hmm.
Kanye changed, I'm like, no, Kanye didn't change. He evolved.
That's
He
right.
he's getting better.
Yep. Yep. And I think he probably, he got in touch with the Most High. Like, I knew that when I saw that Sunday, that the Sunday service choir got invited to Coachella, I did a tweet and I said, Kanye West is a very important person, and the world is going to find out very soon just how important he is.
Mm,
Because what I saw in that moment was, I saw, a reflection of very much kind of like what my own journey had been. That I saw somebody who was like, because that Yeezus album came out at the same time that I was in that really dark left hand path period of my life,
okay.
right? So like, so I was able to very much be like, okay, when he's saying I am a god, I was like, I'm feeling this. Like, this is exactly, I know where you're at. I know exactly where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Except his is just on a much more magnified level.
Right.
I'm a very simple person, so my life at the time, I had a degree of celebrity where I couldn't walk through a airport anywhere in the world without people stopping me and wanting a picture. I had more money than I could spend. I had, my pick of some of the most beautiful and desirable women on the planet. I could wake up and drink if I wanted to, or wake up and work out if I wanted to. I wasn't under anybody's control. I had great clothes and car, and was living on a golf course and country club in Las Vegas, and like, nobody can tell me shit. And plus I was feeling all this power. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, yeah, I got it. I feel him. But then when I saw that transition, I was at a similar place in my life where I was like, yeah, there's you got to be pushing towards the higher ideal. And I saw him pushing towards that higher ideal and not giving a fuck
Mm,
about what other people might say about that. Still concerned, and you hear that on the album, and you hear it in his interviews when he talks about it, like, mostly concerned that Christians doubted him, you
mm,
know?
mm-hmm.
That's the interesting thing, that it's like you hear that over and over, is that like Christians doubt him. But that's like Christ. I mean, the Jews, Christ was killed by his own people, by his
Yeah.
own cult. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Uh-huh.
That he was just trying to expand and push forward and articulate what he had gotten on his own spiritual journey. Whether it was his baptism by John, and the Spirit just descends on him. Whether it was 40 days of fasting, that'll do it to you too, and being tempted by the devil, and that's that moment, right? That's the left-hand path versus the right-hand path, because that's the story. Luke and Mark are the ones that have it. Is that it's like there was a period, and when you think about it, you really get it. And when you see it through the vein of like a Kanye, you really get it. That it's like, here he is, and the devil says, "Nah, you can have all this shit." And you know what? He could have, because he was a powerful individual. We know that he was a powerful individual, so there's nothing to say that had he gone down there and played the Pharisees' game, that he would have been in charge of the temple in no time flat. And he could have had everything, and he could have played with Herod's game, and he might have even been invited to Rome to sit with Caesar to help oppress his people. And there's no doubt that could have happened. That's what we're being told in the story, is that like there is a choice that was made. Indeed. And so, and that's really what we're seeing now, and that's what people don't like, and that because we're in a society where everybody is striving for that left-hand path. When they're when it's like I'm gonna, a woman who's showing her ass on Instagram, okay, you got 5 million followers off that. Okay, now what? Because if you start losing those followers or something happens, you might take your own life. You're reliant upon them. When they were talking about, I read some story, Kanye said this COVID thing was a pause, so we didn't TikTok ourselves out. And there was a story, and people were like, what's he saying? Well, India started banning TikTok in certain areas because of the Chinese connection.
Yes.
Go look at the stories from India of the big TikTokers who had like 1 million followers. I saw one the other day where this dude literally said, when I woke up in the morning and saw that my TikTok account was gone, I felt like my God had been taken away from me. This is a quote. And I'm seeing that's how people are feeling. Even the people who have talked shit on YouTube, when they get canceled, right?
Yeah.
You may as well have taken their God away from them.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you forgot there's somebody above you. You forgot. And your identity is locked up in that. But I think the thing that like someone like yourself, someone like me, I watch my co-stars. I was on a fucking star of a TV show on Showtime for 6 seasons. That does your identity. That level of people don't understand. A lot of motherfuckers watch Showtime, and it was syndicated all over the world. So like from Prague to Panama City, I've been stopped by people who speak languages I don't even speak, telling me that I'm their hero and shit. Their hero, right? And I don't know nothing about you. I don't even know what channel you watch the shit on. I don't speak your language, right? This is being translated to me. But like I watch my co-stars and their desire to keep it going, to have another season. Oh, we got to have another season. We got to. By the time season 6 rolled around for me, by the time season 2 rolled around, I was ready. If this doesn't go on, I'm good. Right? I had already had an identity. I knew that I could step into another identity. I could step into another piece of my life. That was just an opportunity for me to go to another phase and have more success in that phase of my life as well. Right? Like just as this has been a phase and an adventure to say, okay, I grew. Thank you. What's the next thing? And that's part of faith. That's part of faith. But that's what people are like, especially with this social media shit, man. Like, as I say, I was on the early internet. All of these platforms are going to go away. All of these platforms are going to go away. And they're going to go away before you're old. They'll probably be gone in the next 10 years, or at least they won't look the way that they look.
Right.
And the next big thing will come along. And guess what? You with your 5 million followers on Instagram, you're going to be like the top person on MySpace. Where are they now?
Yeah.
Or the chocolate rain guy in the early days of YouTube. Those early YouTube celebrities. Or the top Vine person.
Yeah.
They're all it's all temporary. So what are you doing? You've locked your identity up, but like if they took away your Twitter right now, if they took away your YouTube right now, you would still keep it moving. You would
Yeah.
be like, well, this is an opportunity for me to either find another platform, change up what I'm doing, write another book, focus more on my businesses, whatever, and whatever comes there, you'll have just as much success,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it'll suck for a minute, but you'll be like, okay, well, shit, next thing, keep it moving.
Yeah. Yes. Somebody asked me, he said, yo, what would you do if Twitter deleted if you lost your Twitter account? And I'd be like, and I said, I'd probably throw a party. Like I'd be like, I'd be like, like that phase of my life would be over, right? Like,
hmm
I would say,
hmm
like, thank you. I'm glad that happened. But I
hmm
do so much other shit that Twitter don't make me. Like people like, oh, you got
Right, exactly.
130,000 followers. I'm like, yo, I got an AI company too. You know that, right?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
like I'm
Exactly.
I'm an author, right? Like I'm a thinker. Like,
Exactly.
like I've been in startups for like the past 10 years. Like this shit, like if you think of me as a Twitter nigga, you do not understand me.
Exactly. Exactly. But people want to be, right? They want to attach their identity to these small things.
Yeah.
And again, that's the left hand path. And that's the idea of like Akhenaten was like, why are we attaching our identity to these small gods? This Nile River crocodile god cult, or this this Horus cult over here, or this Isis cult over here. He's like, man, stop that.
Yeah.
Stop that. Go,
Yeah.
what most high. One, pick the top thing that is above everything and go to that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what you take out down here. You can never take out the most high.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
And that's like people who want real power, that's where you go to. And I really feel like it's interesting, man. Like yourself, I saw a video yesterday from Maj Toure, like some other people who have their finger in the politics, finger in business, all brothers, right? Who understand, but who are also really approaching this period of time in not resistance, but like an acceptance and a moving forward of like, how do we move this shit forward?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
That to me is the most hopeful. That's where all the hope is. I got a buddy of mine who's big in the world of Ifa, which is like the African kind of like, I guess it's where voodoo comes from and all of that. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a West African spiritual tradition. He had been predicting that something like this was coming or whatnot, but he's like, it is Africa that is going to, and the thought of Africa as it's moved through the world, that is the solution to all
Mm.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the culture knows it because look at what the resistance movement, Black Lives Matter. It's like, well, why do Black Lives Matter?
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter because the answer is in African thought.
Mm.
And if you kill off all the Africans, you don't get the solution. If
Uh.
you kill off the thought, you don't get the solution. So stop killing Africans
Uh.
because the answer is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why Black Lives matter.
Uh.
That's why all lives don't matter. Like they do, but not as much.
Uh.
And that's not to say that every black person has the answer.
Right.
Obviously not. But as individuals of African descent, we have genetically and culturally, we have an ability that we don't have to do so much remedial shit to just feel it. You know what I mean? To just
Uh-oh.
feel it because we were
Uh-huh.
raised with it, because the rhythm of the thought, the feeling, and all of that is in our bones. So we don't have to get used to the shit. We just have to sit there and think about it and be like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's it, man. That's it.
Real
And yeah, and this is I mean, but we actually have to do it, right? And I think that's again, it's like the left hand path, the right hand path.
Mm.
Yeah, we have to just be like, okay, we accept it. This is our role. We need to move forward. This is what we believe. We need to move forward with those beliefs. Fuck, like we in Malcolm's way, but we don't need to be even so sort of aggressive about it. He had to put it out there in such a way that like others can't participate or whatnot. But I think, you know, with the Hotep movement is a prime example. Anybody, you could participate. You know what I mean? If you're willing to adopt the values, ain't nobody gonna stop you from adopting the values.
Right.
Adopt that shit. Like it's good.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
our role is to just move forward in righteousness, knowing what we're doing is right, and to stop resisting. If that's the only thing that I could say, it's like stop asking for that old world back, and let's just build the new.
The new.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't have to tear down the old temples. We don't have to tear down the temples to Isis and Osiris. We don't have to pull down the statues. We don't have to do any of that shit. Right? Because Akhenaten didn't do that. Right? When they took back over and threw out the Aten cult, they wiped his shit out.
Yes.
Carved over his shit, chiseled away the symbols of the Aten, all of that. But he didn't wipe their shit out.
Right. Right.
Because there was no need.
Right. We're building a new.
It's just, we just go to the Most High. It's like, it's not, we just need to build above where we're at. Right? So we're here. Let's just stand on that foundation and then build above it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So many people ask me, they say, you know, we have to tear down this system of white supremacy. We have to tear down the system of capitalism. I'm like, technically, it's not really much wrong with the system. We just have to perfect it. We have to make it better. Right? There's
So if you want, so white supremacy is a prime example, right? It's like, well, you have a problem with white supremacy. Well, what's the problem? Well, whiteness is supreme. Okay, we'll just put something above it. That it's not supreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
How you can't have white supremacy if the Most High is supreme, because the Most High isn't white, black, red, brown, none of that. Yeah. So how do you eliminate white supremacy? Put something supreme over everything.
Yeah.
And then it's done.
Yeah.
If you have a culture that already has a supreme, you can't have white supremacy. It's impossible.
Right.
Because supremacy means at the top of the hierarchy.
Yes.
That's the supreme.
Yes. Yes. Build your own shit. Build your own culture up.
So when Kanye says this is about God and God's people, yeah, if God is supreme, white supremacy is done.
Right. Right.
It's over like that.
Yep.
Like instantly.
Yep.
Instantly. You want to end white supremacy? Put something above everything else. And then just go to that. Because all they want to do, if you tear apart white supremacy, well then what's left supreme? What's the next thing down? Well, do you even know what the next thing down is? Maybe you don't want that shit.
You don't want that shit. That's gonna be worse than that.
Maybe the reason why there was white supremacy was because white supremacy was better than whatever was below it being supreme.
Ooh, talk about it.
So what happens when you tear down this white supremacy?
You go backwards. You go backwards.
You go back to whatever was before it, which was clearly worse. Otherwise, white supremacy never would have got a foothold. And it might have been worse for Africans too. It might have been worse for non-white people. And I could tell you that actually it is. I could tell you that absolutely it is. Because all of the things that you're trying to use to pull down white supremacy is the reason why we have white supremacy. Rule of law, right? The respect of human rights of man. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with unalienable rights. Rights you can't take away. That's fucking human rights, people. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That was written by a white man, and before that, there had never been a government based on those rights.
Okay.
That was a Eurocentric view. That was a view that was coming from Europe.
Okay.
And so they said, well, only Europe has this shit. They looked around. This comes from Europe. Europeans invented it. Now the problem was that they were like, well, that means Europeans are better. No, that's not what that means. That just means you have the next piece of the puzzle.
Mm. Mm.
But the puzzle ain't done.
Mm.
So now you got that.
Mm.
So now we need to look around and see, well, where are the other pieces of the puzzle? Because this shit is not fully working. It has
Mm.
not delivered the promise that it was supposed to deliver. So now what's supreme? Now where is the next piece of the puzzle? It isn't tear down white supremacy because you leave all this shit that you've taken for granted.
Hey man, you tear down white supremacy, your ass gonna be in a concentration camp by the Chinese.
Yo, if it even the Chinese are following a Marxist doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
They're following a European system of government.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a Chinese context, but they're out there wearing business suits. They ain't wearing no fucking Mandarin collars. You feel me? Like everybody's Eurocentric. Everybody's putting this supreme. Why are they putting it supreme? Because those have been the best ideas so far. But that's just a phase, man.
Yeah, it gets better.
That's just a phase.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things about white supremacy has been fucking history, written history,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like written history has been something, and going out to other cultures, that's also something that Europeans did that no other culture did.
Mm.
They went out and yeah, they tore people apart. Yeah, they conquered people, but they also recorded those people's history.
Mm-hmm.
They also recorded those people's customs
Mm-hmm.
because they cataloged shit. They
Yeah.
had taxonomy of shit. They studied these, and and in many ways, it's through Europeans that we know so much even about ancient African
Yes.
societies.
Herodotus, for example.
I mean, but even more recent in terms
Mm.
of anthropologists and archaeologists
Mm. Mm.
going in.
Mm.
So many of the archaeologists who have uncovered things that are important in terms of the history of
Mm. Mm.
Africa
Mm.
that had
Mm-hmm.
faded into the mists of the oral history that
Mm.
were then brought back have been white Europeans
Yes.
in a European discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But there comes a point where the shit no longer works. It's just like Akhenaten coming along and saying this cult worship of these multi gods is not, it ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the point that we have reached right now. And it's like, that doesn't mean tear down everything that built us to this point.
Mm. Right.
It means because then you're back at fucking square one.
Yep.
Like you don't want what that looks like. Like our
Mm.
society doesn't remember what that looks like, but that means no fucking courts, no human rights, no democracy, no rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want what the fuck that looks like. You
Mm.
really don't.
Mm. Mm.
No capitalism, no
Mm.
financial system. You don't want what it looks like before that shit. You don't.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You really don't.
They wouldn't hack it.
No. But what we can have is we can have the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah.
So the key is to not resist, but the key is to ride the wave. You got a wave, grab your surfboard, you know what I'm saying? Or get your kite in the wind
Yeah.
and get that shit as high as you possibly can using the wind. Don't resist it.
Mm-mm.
Don't resist it. Ride it.
Right.
That's where we got to be.
Yeah. I'm gonna get into some super chats.
Do it.
I know. I
I
know.
got very little battery, but hopefully we're still good.
All
I
right.
brought my phone out here. But go ahead.
You got your phone? Can you grab the charger real fast?
It's trying to charge.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh,
trying to
it's trying
charge.
to charge. All right, cool. Let me hurry up and read the super chats. T West, he said, I've been telling my peers the same thing. Removing statues only lead to the future, forgetting the past as the darkness repeats itself. T West, what a wise man. Claude Fuller, can you give thoughts on Ye tweets? Just tuned in. Claude Fuller, go ahead and rewind. Epic conversation on Ye we just had. Brody McFarland, $50 super chat.
Damn.
Thank you, Brody. Thank you, Brody. He said, God is love. Hotep is greater than resistance. Yes, yes, we ain't resistant. None of this shit. Y'all want to do that fuck shit? Go ahead and do it. We over here doing our thing. Krista Manah, thank you. $10 super chat. Chad says, I am a child of the Most High. Greatness is destiny. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So, Vin, I need you to expound upon the point because I know somebody gonna try and take it out of context,
Go ahead.
misconstrue your words. What did you mean when you said something about the African people and them being the ones with the answer, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
where'd you get that from? What it sounds like you sound like Nick Cannon the other day when he's talking about black supremacy.
No, 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 no. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
So,
that's why
so
I want you to expound.
yeah. So if you want to know what the problem with any system is, the person who you have to so in order to have a solution, you have to know what the problem is, right? In
Okay,
order to formulate a solution,
correct.
you first have to be able to articulate the problem. I know this as a software developer that it's like not only do you have to articulate the problem, but you have to fully articulate the problem. Like you have to dig deeply into the problem and articulate that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only way to articulate the problem at scale, and this is an economic idea. This is like the Hayekian idea of price theory. None of us have all the information, but when we all get together, then we're able to set prices across everything, and then it works itself out. And this is the way that the free market works. So the idea here is, if you want to know the problem in a system, and this is acknowledged by everybody involved in this, I think, but it's just that people haven't fully articulated what's going on. You have to interrogate the individuals who have experienced the problem the most often
Okay.
and who have experienced the problem at its worst,
Mm.
right? And so if you look at Western culture, we can say a lot of good things about it, but we have to say that there are trade-offs. And so if we want to interrogate how do we move forward and build solutions that mitigate some of those negative trade-offs that have happened within our culture, to bulwark ourselves against a complete deterioration of the culture, to move it forward in a way where there aren't those problems, it has to come from people who have experienced the problems the most often, the longest, and with the most intensity.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't mean that they have to be the ones to solve it. We can
Mm.
all solve it together. But if you're looking for a description of the problem, it's going to come from the most articulate individuals out of that particular set.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Beautifully put.
And so if you were going to look for that in Western culture, individuals of African descent have the broadest experience of that over the longest period of time across the dimensions. So that is to say, they have it in Africa, they have it in the Americas under slavery, they have it, interacting on an international level, they have it across many different cultures within the Americas. So you have this broad wealth of information that you can interrogate for what is the problem. And the answer is not simply white supremacy. It's much deeper than that, but very few people are even taking the time to try
Mm.
to analyze what is the problem. And here's the answer. If you get, or here's the wonderful thing, is that if you interrogate the problem and you get it to a point where you say, here's the problem, and you unleash the culture to solve it, then it solves it for everyone.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you can recruit every member of the culture. You're not blaming somebody. We were all born with the problem.
Right.
We all inherited the problem. We were born into the problems. And whoever caused the problem is long dead. And they didn't know that they were causing a problem. For the most part, they were doing the best that they could in the circumstances that they had. And so the only way for us to recruit every member of our culture, of all races, of all backgrounds, to be able to solve the problem is first we have to articulate the problem. I feel like we are doing that I feel like I'm trying to do it as an individual, but I feel like as a whole, if I'm to look to people of African descent around the world, we've done a pretty good job of it. I think that we could be doing better, But I do see that many individuals are stepping up to do that work, and I think that those are the individuals that need to be listened to.
Mm, What's the problem, Vin? Do you know, or vaguely, do you know what the problem is?
Yeah, I think I know. And do you even call it a problem? Like, I think that it's a cycle, right? It's a
Mm,
cycle. Basically, where we're at right now is we're at the stage of what the Indian tradition calls the Vaishya age, the age of the merchant. We've reached all the way to the end of that, and we're in a mode where everything wants to flatten itself out. We've reached into a hierarchy, and in reaching into that merchant age, we've empowered a lot of people. So the average, the president of the United States has the same features on his Twitter account that a brand new Twitter user has.
mm-hmm,
And so as these democratizing platforms move forward, people do not, the hierarchies don't make sense to them anymore.
mm,
Like, they just want it to be merit based. They want it to be flattened out, and they want it to be merit based.
right.
And that's really what people are saying when they are pulling down statues and talking about white supremacy. Is they're like, well, why do you, by virtue of your birth, you shouldn't have privilege? Like, things are flat. It should be based on your merit.
Right.
And that's, I mean, fundamentally creating systems whereby those hierarchies are flattened, and where the empowerment of the individual to become the greatest that they can be. That's the problem. We have stopped empowering the individual. And
Mm,
because we don't have the tools to empower the individual, all that is left is to tear down other individuals, to bring them down to the level of the lowest. So instead
mm,
of raising the individuals up, all you
yeah.
have left is to tear down. And if there's anywhere and any group of people, particularly descendants of slaves in the Americas, who can speak to how do you take an individual from the bottom and raise them to something that they could be proud of, there's no greater tradition than that we
Mm,
have access to.
Yeah, the answers are right there. Yeah.
Right there.
Uh,
Right there.
Powerful. Powerful. Um, so before your battery runs out, we got to talk about your tech. We got to talk about your tech. You said you
Yep.
have some sort of SMS wallet. What's this thing that's happening?
So that's Cointext, cointext.io. We've reduced the number of countries. We were in 40 countries, but we weren't getting usage in like half of them. So now I think we're in 20 something countries. Uh,
Well, what
it's a
does that
Bitcoin
mean
and
for
cash.
you? What does that mean for you logistically? What are you pulling back when you say you're not going to be in these countries anymore?
Access numbers. So basically, it's a
Okay.
wallet that you're able to use with text commands by texting to it's basically like a bot. You could text to a
Okay.
bot, but it's a non-custodial wallet. You have control of your keys, but you don't need internet. You don't need a smartphone. So we've got people in places like from Ukraine to South Africa that are using this to send crypto, and you can send to any Bitcoin Cash address, and also any number that is in a country, and you can immediately send somebody crypto. So that's very cool. Um, but then I also do pretty extensive work in the Bitcoin Cash community, release protocols, various protocols that are now being used for especially token stuff. And here we're doing a lot with stable coins, particularly with the USDH and also with Tether. I'm really big on stable coins moving on the permissionless platforms. So basically one-to-one US dollar tokens. And so we've got businesses here set up with point of sales and whatnot. We've got people using crypto. And so that's really what I'm trying to expand now, is to take it into the next phase of this sort of evolution. I'm a big like peer-to-peer cash guy. I'm big on it being used in commerce. I'm not real big on like speculation. For years now, I've earned all of my income in cryptocurrency, 100% of it. And
Mm.
so, my businesses accept cryptocurrency as well. I've got a monthly newsletter called Counter Markets. You can get cryptocurrency, get your subscription there. I've got a vodka company, Baby Vodka. We accept cryptocurrency exclusively. So my latest book, I sell exclusively for cryptocurrency, self ownership, and my next book will be the same. So for me, I'm really just about pushing this forward. I think that it's the most important thing to, again, empower the individual to be able to interact in a peer-to-peer manner. And so that's what I do full time now. Like it's
Mm.
full time for me, Bitcoin stuff and programming.
Mm.
Besides, having these wonderful conversations, that's what I do.
Yeah. What language you programming in?
So CoinText is written exclusively in Python,
Okay.
but right now most of what I'm working in is variants of JavaScript, so Node.js, and then our wallets and our point of sale are in React. Um, Throughout my career, I've written in just about everything except like C++, although I've done a lot of C variants.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much right now on the application side that's JavaScript, and it's accessible to the most amount of people. There's the highest number of developers. It's easiest for new developers to get involved in. And so, yeah, that's been for some reason the Bitcoin Cash community. That's what they've really picked up on the application side. And so that's what I'm working in right now.
So, as somebody who is currently learning JS, right? Is there
Mm-hmm.
any advice you can give me? Because for example, right, like I'm going through these exercises, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
going back through them, and I'm wondering, should I keep doing that until I master some of these
No,
basics?
nope, nope. I'm a big proponent of going the opposite direction, right? Find an application that's a relatively simple application that you want to build. Node is great because there's all kind of modules, right? So you can sort of build your application with these modules and start just building a very simple application using those modules. And then as you need things, go in and modify the modules or go in and modify and then start researching the actual problems that you have.
Okay.
Because rather than doing the exercises, when you actually research the problems and you solve it for yourself in a meaningful way that solves something in your application, you've got it for life.
All
You've
right.
got it,
Okay.
right? Whereas exercises have never done that for me. And I have a feeling we probably learn in the same way. I have a
Mhm.
feeling. So I would say pick an application that you think is interesting and just start building. You know, just
Building
just
building
have
an
just
application from scratch using certain modules.
yeah, yeah. Like
Wow.
Do it in Node.js and just do it. Just start out like that.
So should I just
That's what I
scrap?
would say.
Should I be scrapping my free code camp course and just put that to the side, or continue learning, or do
I mean,
both?
if you feel like you can declare variables and you have an idea of like
Oh,
what
I can definitely
you
do that.
know the different data structures are, numbers and arrays and objects, and how to create them and how to log something out to console and what a function is, and how to declare functions and how to create them, and just start coding.
Okay. Yeah.
Shut up and code.
All right. So I'm at the point now where I'm trying to understand objects, and
Yes,
I'm trying to understand calling different functions within an object, right?
yes.
And
Methods. Yeah, methods.
methods, yes, methods. That's where I'm at on my learning. How far am I? I'm probably still like in baby
You're
steps.
right there. You're right there. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, because it's like
Honestly, now just start going.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
pull from like these exercises asking me to pull from this object, and it's like you need some with the bracket, then dot notation and bracket, and it's just like
You'll get it. You'll
oh,
get it when you start because you'll do these modules and then you'll see the examples in the modules and then it'll just take you a few times of going and just doing the little examples and you're like, oh, that's how it works, right?
okay,
You just need the code. You need the code. I'm
all right,
almost out of I'm at 2% of battery right now.
all right. Last question. So should I
Yeah.
just continue to just breeze through my course and while I
Yeah.
start to
Breeze through
build?
it.
All right,
Yeah.
breeze through it.
Breeze through it and code. And I have a feeling that you won't reach the end because you'll be like, I got this shit.
That's great news, Vin. That's great
Yeah.
news. You just helped me out a lot. Thank you. Yo, Vin's website is in the description box below. As you already know, you guys should be following this guy. You need to be buying his stuff. Oh, wait, Vin, I do got one last question before you go. I probably
Go.
asked you this
Hurry.
off, but
Hurry.
recommended Carl Jung book.
Oh boy. I mean, I like Aeon. Um, it's pretty deep and a little bit dark, but I think that it's appropriate for the time. He gets into a lot about alchemy, which I think is important. So I would say Aeon for sure.
Dope. All right, I'm gonna start reading. Thank you, my brother.
All
Appreciate you
right,
for
brother.
coming
Thank
on.
you.
I'm gonna bring you back soon in the future, man.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah. Peace. As y'all know, it was another wonderful, wonderful uncomfortable conversation. I was very comfortable. Um, Shout out to Vin Armani. Back with another video. Who created that? That's what I used to say. Vin Armani is amazing. I like this guy, Hotep Jesus. I've been a fan since back with another video. Learned a lot from you. I am a god. Yeah, that's what I used to do. Back with another video. I used to do that before all my videos. Damn, OG, what's up, man? Thank you. Halima, I'll see you tomorrow morning at my summit. In case people don't know, I um I help entrepreneurs get their ideas off the ground or scale and get to the next phase of their business. That's at briansharp.co/summit. It's only like $90 a month. I cost 90, $150 an hour. So, $97 a month, you can get my time. And usually I charge, anywhere from 2,500 to 3K or better for a monthly stipend. And that's working like, part time. So yeah, if you guys ever want help with your business, entrepreneurship, briansharp.co/summit. And I'm going to continue to bring you some great and amazing people. I already got my guests for next week, and I got like the next 4 guests already planned out. So keep tuning in every Friday, 7 p.m. I'm here. Wednesdays with Wendy. Crypto Wendy O. It's our relationship show every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And as most of you know, HOTEPS has been told you every Thursday at 8 p.m. That's the premiere show on this channel. Great laughs with Uncle Hotep. Y'all be safe. And thank you for watching.